All right, here we go. All right, so everybody's got safety glasses. Okay, you're gonna want to put your unicorn away.
Why?
Because we need to get everything in place. All right, looks like we're live. So hello everyone. Wait a minute, what? Yeah, that's so weird. Anyway, I think we are live, so it looks like we're up and going. So everybody, welcome back. This is day 16 of quarantine in the studio. And today we have again the girls with us. And what we are going to do, is it not starting? Let's see if we got that going now. There we go. Oh my goodness, technical issues again, still. You think that I would figure everything out and not have any more technical issues, huh?
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. That would be lovely. So anyway, what we are learning today, as I get the girls ready to begin soldering and setting some stones and things like that. What?
We need to learn how to file some stuff.
You do. You actually need to learn how to prepare your piece before you move on to various steps. So the first thing that we are starting off with today, let's switch over to this camera. So the first thing that we're starting off with today is that I've already created, chomp chomp. What are you munching on over there? I've created a thing that's either going to become, I was thinking maybe some earrings, but I figure I'll start with a pendant first and kind of see how heavy it is, because this is 12 gauge square wire. Do you know how big 12 gauge is? Anybody idea? So remember when we were talking a little bit about how we measure our, what?
How does it open?
Oh, so, okay, so hang on. Remember how we were talking about how we measure materials? Mm-hmm. So when we are in kind of the hobbyist field or kind of the DIY field, then we use gauges. But if you ever talk with an actual jeweler, they don't go by gauges, they go by millimeters. And why would you do millimeters versus gauges?
Thanks for hugs back. What does the third person say?
Which one?
The blue picture one.
Oh, the blue one. So Alice says, hello, glad to make it here on time. Hi, Kate. Hi, unicorn girl.
Hey, we were only a bit late.
We were a little bit late, huh?
Today's unicorn is Pixie.
Again.
Because she's one of my favorite toys and I've been using her.
Yep. Okay.
Hug with, like while I'm doing my homework, she helps me keep.
Okay, so put her away, stay on task, because you're not focusing right now. So stay on task. So when you're working with jewelers, and this has become really so much more apparent to me in the last year where I've had the opportunity to work with Alan Revere, we have a group on Facebook called Let's Make Professional Jewelry. And it's where we are working through all the different projects in his book, Professional Jewelry Making, some of which I have videos on. Some I may never make the video for. They are taking you from kind of an intermediate, so it assumes that you already know how to use tools and soldering and everything like that. So it takes you from that intermediate level to a high-end professional level with fabricating. It doesn't get into stone setting or anything like that. But this is one of the skills that you need to learn before you can really get into taking your pieces more high-end, is that kind of that finishing work. Okay, but one of the things that you also need to do is you need to know how to measure things. So that brings me back. Why do we not want to use gauges? Why do we want to use a millimeter measurement?
Maybe when you go look at the material, it's not going to have, oh, this is this gauge, this is this gauge.
Okay, that would be one thing.
It's this thick.
So hello, Paula, and welcome. So here's the biggest thing. A gauge is merely a name. That's all it is, a name for a thickness of wire. It is not an exact measurement. You cannot take 20 gauge and add that to 14 gauge and actually have a number, because all they are is names. That's like adding Chiari and green. What does that mean?
A green Chiari.
Okay, but again, it's just a name. It's an indicator of something like that. Don't wiggle your tooth in here. You're going to be working with dirty stuff. Okay,
my
so,
tooth right now. Sweden.
oh wow.
I have a wiggly tooth.
Well, hello, Paula from Sweden, and hi, Frank. Welcome. So what we want to do is we want to start thinking about what our metal is in terms of millimeters. So since you two are just learning, that's more of what I'm going to teach you guys. I'm not even really going to teach you too much about the gauges. Now, in my studio, it is a wiggly tooth, but keep your fingers out of your mouth, especially in the studio. So what we want to do, what we want to do is we want to determine how thick our material is. By going with the millimeters, one, it becomes a universal measurement. So it doesn't matter if I'm talking to somebody in the UK, it doesn't matter if I'm talking to somebody in Greece or in Russia or China or here in the US, it's all going to be the same measurement, right? So that's kind of what we want to look at. So in this case, I have, and I'm still making that transition. Like right now, I still don't know the measurements of my wires. And the way that I have my wire and sheet all organized is I have hanging file folders. And I happen to have a lot more silver than a lot of people do because I would teach classes. And so I would keep a little bit more in stock for the different projects. So everything is in a hanging file folder and each gauge is in its own bag. And it's labeled on the file folder and on the bag what the gauge is. And what I'm starting to do now is to measure that wire and write that measurement on the bag and that file folder. So that way now when I go to look for 12 gauge, I will see that, oh, I believe 12 gauge is about 2 millimeters. And sure enough, 12 gauge is 2 millimeters. So when I say I have a 2 millimeter wire, it's talking about its thickness. All right? So Alice, yeah, a lot of people understand the measurement stuff. Okay, and like I said, that was kind of a newer thing to me. So when I went it was a year ago, I went and spent a week with Alan Revere, and you know, he would say, okay, you need this size measurement. And to me, that doesn't even compute. Like he was like, okay, you need a 0.8 millimeter sheet. Well, all right, what's 0.8 millimeter? I happen to now know that 0.8 millimeter is about 18 gauge. Okay, so as you start to work with these, you become a little bit more familiar with those. So hopefully that helps some of you guys that are a little bit newer to making jewelry and you're getting into the, all of this stuff. Wow, your ADD is coming out. Hold still.
What's ADD?
Attention deficit disorder.
What does that mean?
It's when you can't pay attention. Yes. A lot of energy. Yes, they've all noticed. Okay, so what we've done, yes, you did stay in bed all day yesterday. So what I've done is this is going to be a pendant. We'll see how we like it or whatever else as well. Oh, good grief. He has the most impeccable timing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, so what I've done here is I've just taken these two wires, I've kind of bowed them a little bit, and then I soldered them together. Now, when I soldered these together, there's some solder blobs on here. You see that?
Solder blobs?
Yep, see that mess up here on the top of this? Okay.
What are you
And I don't know if you guys can see this here. Where are we? Bring this up. There we go.
Unicorns and animals.
Okay. So as you can see here, we've got a little bit of solder blobs, and you know, things are not necessarily the cleanest on either side. And not only that, but you can see the seam. All right, and we don't want to see any seams. So we want this to be nice and clean and polished. So what do you guys think we need to do first when we're doing something like this?
File it down.
Okay, yeah, we can use our files. What other things can we use to do this?
Like sandpaper?
Yes, and sometimes you will have to start off by hand with a file or whatever else. Now there are a lot of tools on the micromotors or the flex shafts. So the items that I'm going to show you guys for the micromotors, I'm using the micromotors because they're right here. I don't have to have the flex shaft hanging here, you know, and kind of be at awkward angles with the girls here and the cameras. So I have a couple micromotors that are set up on my bench top because I've been working on a couple micromotors or videos for Fordham, so they're both handy. So you have a couple of different tools that you can use with your micromotors. And again, all of these will work with your flex shaft as well. All of
We're coming on live for your first time.
Oh yes, well welcome Lucy for your first time on our live video. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to use these sanding drums, and in this case I have one that's a little grittier, so this is probably a 220, it might be even a 320.
You said they're sanding drums.
Yep, the different drums, huh? Okay, and these drums, these little sanding drums,
They look like a popsicle.
kind of, it's a little roll of sandpaper.
Yeah, yeah. They're like those tape things that you put on your clothes to get off hairs.
It
You
is.
even have some hairs on you.
Oh wow.
It's a sand
On your
popsicle.
shirt.
Okay.
On your clothes.
We're
Blah,
gonna
blah,
stop
blah.
calling it sanding drums.
All right.
Sanding
No.
popsicle.
Okay. So when you have these, they will wear down. Hang on. Let me pull you back into this camera again and get you zoomed in a little bit. All right. So let me get this zoomed in here. All right.
Hello.
So let's see if I can get this. So on this particular one, you guys can see how it's kind of worn down, and this is just not going to be very good for me anymore. Like there is some good surface, but we've got it to the point here
It
where,
needs to be replaced.
yeah, it does need to be replaced.
So take off one of the tape things.
Yeah, so what we do is we're just going to kind of grab this down here, and I'm just going to tear it around like so, and then I'm going to tear it off.
You're not tearing the bottom off.
That's okay. We can always come back with an X-Acto knife if we needed to kind of clean that up. What?
Feels like it's like soft.
Yeah, it is a soft sandpaper, and in this case, this is 1000 grit. Is that what that says? Yep, this is 1000 grit. So this is one of our finer papers, so it's not going to be as rough. So I would not start. You want to feel that one? I would not start this with this one. Why?
Because it's really fine.
It is really
Not gonna
fine.
do a whole ton.
Right, and compare that one to this one. Can you see the difference?
Yeah.
And you can feel the difference,
Yeah, that
right?
one
You
almost
used
feels-
that
this
one?
Feels like almost like a foam,
Have you used that
and this
one?
one feels
Yeah, I have actually.
almost
But
like
then
a
I'll
worn
get
down
slivers on my
sandpaper.
fingers.
You won't get slivers, you'll be fine. But see how that one has a
Oops,
grittier
sorry.
feel? Yeah, you drawing on me?
It's kind of more like a worn down
I didn't
normal
get on
sandpaper.
you.
Right. So what we want to do is we want to start here with the one that's a little bit more gritty. Ah,
Come on,
thanks.
Mommy.
On accident.
Okay, so we want to start with one that's a little bit more gritty. Now, we have to talk a little bit about our micromotors before we get into this. So, okay, so before we get into this too much, we need to talk a little bit about the micromotors. Let me pull one over here really fast. Now, the micromotor that I keep here at the filming station is
Everyone's from Arizona.
Arizona must be a good place to be. You know what? We're expecting snow today. It hasn't gotten there yet, but
Tomorrow.
I don't know. Did it change? Did it change to tomorrow?
It was always tomorrow.
Was it tomorrow?
Supposed to snow.
I don't know. I don't care. It's springtime. It's not supposed to snow in the springtime.
It can snow any time of the year, you told me.
It can, but we don't like it when it does. That's the thing.
Making a spring bell pepsi.
Yes. Well, because it is spring.
Very good.
Okay, so the micromotor that I'm using here at the filming bench is the Fordham 1060. This is a brushless motor, which means we do not have the brushes in here that need to be changed out.
Said it's better than an earthquake, and I agree.
Oh, I'm so tired of the earthquakes.
We had a little earthquake yesterday.
At least it was just a little one, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't like
Stay on task. Good heavens. All right, so back on task. The micromotor, you do not need to replace the brushes. It is a closed unit, so you don't have the same kind of maintenance that you have with a brush type motor. Now the brush type motors, they're a little bit different. They're a little louder because you need the air circulation down here, and occasionally you will have to remove this down here. There are brushes down here that you would need to then replace, just like you do in a flex shaft machine or a number of other machines that have the brush motors.
So why are the brushes right there, though?
Well, so you can easily get to them. So in this case, they're not too difficult to get to, but you do have a little bit more maintenance. Now this micromotor is it depends on, you can order the brush type motors in a couple different configurations, and when you do that, it changes what the part number is. So this one started out for me as a 1090 because it had both hand pieces of the rotary and the hammer hand piece. But if you only get the rotary one, then it's a 1070. So 1070 means that it accepts the number 3/32 inch mandrels, but you can also order a 1070-18, and that means that it takes the 1/8 inch mandrel or shanks on your mandrels. So there's a couple of differences there. The motor with the 1070 only goes up to about 38,000 RPM, whereas the 1070 or the 1060, that is the brushless motor, that's the one I'm going to be using now, the brushless motor, this will go up to 50,000 RPM. Now in the jewelry field, we're almost never going to go to 50,000 RPM. You do that and you can easily damage a lot of your tools because they are not rated for that kind of speed. So anytime I have some kind of accessory, so let's say for instance, I have here a texture tool. And if I look at this, this will tell me that this is a maximum of, I picked a bad one because that part is moved over, 5,000 RPM. Okay, so a tenth of what my machine can do, 5,000 RPM. So you want to look at what your item says. So here's some Moore's discs, and they have a maximum of 30,000 RPM. All right, and pretty much all of your different accessories that you get will give you some kind of measurement. So in the case of these sanding discs that we are going to use, these I believe are 5,000 RPM. Okay, so if I'm going to use,
I heard on lipstick.
she put on lipstick just for you guys.
It's a dark red.
All right, so you guys, I really appreciate that you guys are enjoying the videos, so thank you. And like I said, there's quite a few people who don't like them, and for whatever reason they feel free, or they feel like they should let me know. So I appreciate that you guys like them. The girls really enjoy them. They are learning a lot, and hopefully you guys are learning a lot with them. So what I've just done is I've just swapped out, I had a drill bit in here, and I swapped this out. Now here's one thing that I want to show you. In this particular micromotor, I did a video a few months back where I showed you how to change out a collet. Okay, and a collet is sized to go with the shanks on your different mandrels. So in this case, the majority of my shanks are 3/32, and that's what a lot of jewelers are going to use. But every now and then, I have a 1/8 inch shank. Okay, and this is also pretty standard for any of your Dremel tools. So if you have the Dremel tools, then you're going to want that 1/8 inch. So what you can do is you can change out the collet to the 1/8 inch, and then you can get collet adapters. And the adapters are just this thin little thing. It fits onto your 3/32 inch shanks, and it fits into that 1/8 inch hole, and you are ready to go. All right, so when I talk with the guys from Fordham, they highly suggest that you put in the 1/8 inch collet and then you just use the collet adapters. The reason for that, and try to get 1/8 inch shanks on as many things as you can. The 1/8 inch shank is thicker, so as you get into those higher speeds, you reduce the risk of having that shank bend on you. I have actually seen people post a photo where they'll have some kind of maybe like a silicone wheel or the radial discs or whatever else, and it's been in here. One, it was probably out too far, but two, like there's a nice little 90-degree bend in it, so it's sitting in here at a 90-degree bend. And what happens, especially if you're going at some higher speeds and you've got that longer shank in there and the thinner shank, well, you get a little bit of force on something and it bends it, and that centrifugal force pulls it down even further. So a couple of problems that they had: one, they were using too much speed, too small of a mandrel, okay, or too small of the shank on the mandrel. So those are some things that you want to consider. So like I said, the guys at Fordham suggest that you order or get the 1/8 inch collet, and they can be swapped out, and I show videos of how to do that, and then just use the collet adapters. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay. So the micromotor, let me back out this camera and let me show you guys what I'm doing here. Oh, wrong camera, there we go. Okay, so this is the micromotor that I have. Now, like I said, this particular sanding wheel, and I think we're probably at a 320 on this one. This is rated for 5,000 RPM. The micromotor that is the 1060, the 1060, our brushless one, has a digital dial. So I'll dial this down to 5, and then it tells me that it's times 1,000 RPM. I have the option of doing forward and reverse, and I have the option of using a hand control. So if I'm gonna do hand, I'm gonna turn this to 0, my knob, push on my hand, and then I can dial up however fast I want it to be. Like in this case, maybe I'll do 5,000, and then I have to tell it to run. Okay, that's if I do it by hand. If I do it by foot, I can just have it dialed to whatever, and then I will use my foot pedal. Let me pull this over here, and then I can do this. Okay, now notice here, I want to show you guys something. Notice that depending on how hard I push my pedal, it will show me what my speed is. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Hopefully you can. Okay, so my foot pedal is variable speed, but it still gives me that indicator. That's only here on this brushless motor one as well. So hello, Wendy from Pittsburgh.
I don't understand brushes.
You don't understand brushes. Oh, are you talking about the brush type motor?
Yeah, like I don't understand it.
Okay, so when and you know what, they don't even look like brushes. Okay, so that's something that's a little different too. It's got this little carbon thing. Do you know carbon, like a pencil? Okay, so it's got like this little pencil block or cube with a little curve in it that fits right up against the motor inside of this, and then there's a little coil spring. And what happens when you do that is it will conduct the electricity from your box and to your motor. Okay, those brushes, they wear down, and then eventually they have to be replaced. Well, on the brushless micromotor, we have ceramic bearings that allow this to spin. Okay, so that's why we don't have to do any of that kind of maintenance on here, because the motor or the brushes aren't there.
People watching.
Does that make sense? So that's a good question. And I have some videos that talk about changing out the brushes, why we have them, and whatever else. So what we want to do, we're going to clean up this pendant, okay? And I'm going to do it with the micromotor. Usually I would do this, I would start this off by filing it, but I want to show you, if I jump right into the micromotor, what can be done, and maybe a few additional tools. So we want to do that, but first things first, anytime you use a power tool like this, what do you need to have?
Safety goggles.
That's right. We need our safety glasses. Okay, so make sure you guys are using the proper safety precautions.
Double glasses.
Yep. All right, so safety glasses on, a mask if you guys need this, and what I'm going to do.
Double protected.
Oh, I want this camera, I
It
guess.
breaks through one pair of glasses, that's fine. I got another pair.
Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do, hold on, watch out. I'm gonna move you guys over here. We're gonna zoom in just a little bit, and I wanna come over here to the block. Now, I like to, you should be working at a block here, okay, or a bench block or something like that as well. Alice, you said you have a nice pendant motor. Does the micro tool do enough differently to justify that need also? That's a good question, and a lot of people ask that. You know, if I've got a micro motor, do I need the flex shaft or a pendant motor? If I've got the one, do I need the other? There are different uses for each of them, and I know that that's kind of a lame answer. I like having them both. Like, there are different attachments that I can use on my flex shaft that I don't here. Although there are some different accessories that go with this that would make it work. give me just a second and then I'll come back to that, Alice, so don't let me forget. So what I'm going to do is I want to support this here on my bench block. So hopefully you guys can see, let me see if I can get this back up here just a little bit better. Can you stop moving around? Whew, my kids need an outdoor recess, stop. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to support this on my bench block, and I'm going to, you want to always support your hand somehow, whether you've got it here, and I'm trying to keep my hands clear so you guys can see what I'm doing, but I want to stabilize somehow, so I'm not just free floating here. So you always want to stabilize somehow against your bench block, against your fingers. So if I were to hold this up, then I would support here against my fingers. You always want to stabilize somehow. And then I'm going to hold my micromotor, and in this case, you'll notice that I'm kind of holding it like a pencil. That is one of the things that I really like, because I have a very flexible cord that allows me to really move around. I don't have to worry about the heaviness of that shaft. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to gently kind of come along and across this solder that's here. And because
Don't solder it down too low.
well, yeah, you don't want to file it down too far, right?
Otherwise you'll have this weird dent at the top. Unless that's
Okay.
what you want.
But the other thing too is this is not going to be as fast. Okay, what would be faster?
A faster speed, but not like...
No, not necessarily a faster speed, because my stuff can only take so much speed. So ideally what you'll do is you'll start off with a file first, and you'll get the bulk of that. And in this case, see how we're kind of wonky-do right here at the tip of this even? So what I want to do is I'm going to use my file to come in here and give the shape that I'm after. Okay, so notice that what I'm doing here is I'm holding this up against my bench pin, right? And that allows me to keep everything stable. And notice another thing that I do is I use the entire length of my file. Okay, the other thing I've done is see how I'm holding my file? This is very important. So you want to hold here, here, and then you want to support it with your index finger. Okay, and that allows me to bring that up and manipulate it or move it around the way I need to. All right, and then I'm going to come back here on the top. Now, why would I start this with a file and not just do it with the sandpapers?
Because the file's
faster.
It is faster. Why is it faster?
And you have control. Because
you can press
this
harder,
one,
and you can get rid of more of it.
Okay, so the biggest reason is because
Pete,
this
move
is
over.
going to be a lot more aggressive because of the cut. Now this file is a number 2 cut. No, don't do that. That's almost silver. Because what we'll do is we'll just take that and we'll put it into a little container. So files are going to be a little bit more aggressive because yes, you can push down more on them, right? Another thing too though is that sandpapers can be pretty aggressive if you have them, let's say, mounted on to some kind of a block or something like that. Okay, like a stick, so that you have a sanding stick. Okay, so let's say then that we've got this pretty much here, but you'll notice that I still have a lot of file marks. Okay, so I can do one of two things. Either I can move to a finer file. Like I said, this is a cut number 2. And that's going to be a pretty aggressive file. So what it's going to do is remove a lot of metal. But you can go to a finer file where its teeth are a little bit closer together and smaller. Okay, so then after that, then we're going to come back in here with our sanding barrels.
look, the slippers are dancing.
Yep, the dust.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I can come in here and I can do this. So notice here, like, you remember how last time I said that I was going to hold it kind of like a pencil and I supported my pinky over here? But this time, notice that I'm holding it kind of in my fist like this.
Yeah.
I've got my piece supported here, right? And let me pull this over here just a little bit so you guys can see this a little better. So now I'm going to put my thumb here. Look, you're going to have to do this, honey, so you better pay attention. Leave the marbles alone. So now I'm going to support by placing my thumb here, and that way now I can just come in and out like this, right? So placing this down. Now here's the thing too. You can hear if my piece is up against my bench block, so, or my bench pin. So you hear that? Listen.
Like music.
Hear the difference? Okay, so this is sitting up.
Bonk.
Yep, this is sitting up, but now if I put it down here on my bench block or pin, my bench pin, then I can come in here.
What are you doing?
So you see how there's a little seam right here? We want to work that out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Can you please
So any questions on this part, you guys? Now, here's the other thing too. Notice that it still leaves some marks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What would you have to do to remove those marks? And I'm not talking about the seam. I'm talking about the marks left from the sandpaper.
Polish it.
Oh, yeah, polish it.
Okay, not
Or
yet.
sand it out more.
Because, yes, but how do I sand it out more? Do I just keep going with this one?
No, the softer one.
You go to a finer one.
The softer one. The softer one is finer, isn't
It
it?
definitely is a little softer, but yeah. So you want to move, at this point then, you would want to move to a finer grit, and that would allow you to remove these marks. Now when you are doing this, even if you're still working with a rotary tool, anytime you do sanding and you move from one grit to the next, if you're going up and down on one, then you want to try to go side to side wherever possible. Why would you do that? As you change your grit, you change directions. Why would you do that? What do you think?
To get rid of, get rid of the marks that are going up and down.
Right, because see, let's say that we've got marks that go like this, okay? So imagine that you got like claw marks, right? Then you go to a finer grit, and now you're gonna go this way.
Because if you keep going like this, you're just going to make the marks bigger, possibly.
Possibly, or what happens is those marks get filled in with dust from you know, smoothing things down, and so you don't really see that you haven't really removed everything. But by going in the opposite direction, then you're able to do that until you no longer see the up-down marks. Then you switch to a finer grit, and you go back to up-down again. And so each time you kind of alternate that. Does that make sense?
So could
I don't
make
think
it
we're
filled-
supposed to feel these in.
Okay, we'll figure that out in just a minute.
For each item.
Okay, we'll do that in just a minute. What?
If you go like this and then you go back to like this again, couldn't that other
one
section that
number
was like
and
this
two
anyway get
names.
filled in?
No, because what you do is when you go this direction, you keep going this direction until all of the up and down ones are gone.
And then you go to a finer grit and you go.
And then you go back, yep, and you do that again until all the other ones now are removed.
So you're just getting rid of other ones by making new ones.
Yes, but they're getting finer and finer, so it's not as aggressive, and it's smoothing it out at the same time.
So does that make your piece smaller?
It can. So you want to be watching how aggressive you are with that. That's a good question. So yeah, I mean, definitely as I go with this, I mean, I can definitely grind a lot of away on this, and I may not want to grind that away. And that is something that you have to be careful with, because in the case of this pendant, two things. I want to put a tube set. So I want to solder a tube in here. I'm going to have you guys tube set that. But the other thing that I want to do is, because I'm practicing more advanced stone settings, so I would like to do some bead setting here along the edges. Okay, and my stones are 1.75 millimeters. How wide was my wire? Do you remember?
2 millimeters.
It was 2 millimeters. I don't have a lot of room here to move. Okay, I've got 0.15 millimeters. Do you realize how small that is?
Let's find out.
Yeah, it's like nothing. So I need to be really careful and make sure that I don't remove too much material there. So very good question. Okay. Hey guys, we got somebody in here from Holland too. Okay, so coming back to that question that Alice asked about if I have the pendant or the flick shaft motor, do I also need the micromotor? So I have 3 pendant motors and I have 3 micro motors.
Done.
Now part of that is because I do reviews on the tools, but also part of that is because I have things in different locations
This is what-
and I have dedicated jobs for certain tools. So back here in my engraving, I always keep a micro motor there. I like the micro motor because, again, we have a lot of flexibility. They're very lightweight. However, this is my motor. Okay, whereas you've got that flex shaft, that pendant part, that is your motor. And then you've got the shaft that, you know, moves that centrifugal motion for, yeah, it is, it's tiny. So I don't have much room to remove, do I? You can't even see it on there. No. So what we want to do is, or what you have here are, you know, again, the motor, and that's why some of these are so much more expensive. But really, like if you just do the rotary style brush type motor, it's about the same cost as one of the flex shafts. Things I like, I mean, look at how flexible this is. And again, it doesn't weigh much. It weighs more than a hand piece, but I don't have to fight the weight of the flex shaft itself. Okay, so that gives me a little bit more flexibility. I'm able to hold this a little differently. I do have the ability to go a little faster with these. However, they may not have as much torque. The flex shafts definitely have more torque. So if you are really trying to hog down on stuff or, you know, do some heavier duty things, then that is definitely a possibility that's a little bit better. Now there are accessories that I have that only work with my flex shaft. So the number 44T and the number 30 handpiece, I have a drill press that I can use. And I also have an attachment that I can put on my bench that will hold my flex shaft so that then it becomes a hands-free thing where I can come in here and I can do like a mini polishing lathe or anything like that.
Said hog down on stuff.
Yep, yours says a hog, huh?
The hog weighed 186 pounds more than the dog.
Yep.
Hog, dog. Change the H to a D or change the D to an H to make hog or dog.
So now you got some math
dog.
and spelling in there all at the same time. So, okay. So, but there are some accessories through Fortem that will also work with the micromotor hand pieces, those same accessories. I only happen to have them for the flex shaft. So at this point, I kind of dedicate one of my flex shafts to that. So I hope that helps answer your question. I know that it's not a like, yes, you should buy one of each. I actually really like having them, and I find that I use the micromotor more often than I do my flex shaft at this point. I like the flexibility and the freedom of it in moving it around and stuff. So hopefully that answers your question there as well. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, so girls, what are you doing? They're measuring dust on the floor, I guess?
No, it's not dust.
What is it?
I don't know what it is.
What is it? Oh, it's a little copper cutout.
Can I see it now?
It's as good as dust, right? Okay, so what would I need to do next on this piece? Because we're not ready yet to polish, correct? What do you think we still need to do here?
You keep sanding it down.
Okay, so we can either keep sanding it down. All right, and then once we've got it all sanded down, then what do we do?
Polish it or
You
get it ready
polish
for polishing.
it or wash it.
Right, so then we would start
Then
to do
you can
polishing.
wear it.
Okay, but we still have a long ways to go to polish this. Now let's say that we jumped, let's say we're being,
Impatient.
thank you, there's the word, impatient. I was just looking for my buff and my polishing compound.
We're
So,
very impatient family, so we're gonna skip a few things.
well, let me show you what happens if you jump right to polishing.
I don't think
So,
Sanding or after stuff?
let's say that we do some sanding and we think, oh, hey, oh, there's my polishing compound. That's what I want. Okay, so let's say that we're impatient. We think, oh, you know what, I've done a lot of sanding. I think I'm good. And maybe I can just polish out.
Okay.
Yes. Maybe I can just polish out a few of these imperfections. So I'm going to use some white diamond, and I'm going to use a cotton buff.
Ooh, white diamond.
What's that?
That's what I said.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah, so
diamond?
Alice, I really do like the flexibility factor.
Is that
Okay, so hang on, I'll tell you, just a
Okay,
second.
Never mind.
So I'm going to swap out my bit here. And again, it's got that 1/8 inch shank, or the 3/32 shank, so just in and out, which is lovely. There are a number of quick change hand pieces that you are able to do that with on the Ford and Flick shafts as well. So you do have a couple of options there. And Alice, if you have questions about it later, let me know, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Let me see if I can get this here.
Hello.
So what I'm going to do, let me zoom in to this just a little bit so you guys can see. All right. Let's see, there we go. Okay, so if we look at our piece, you'll notice that we still have some file marks. So see how it's not perfect yet, right?
Yeah.
Realistically, we would want to get this whole thing to have the same surface. Now, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to put on a mask and I'm going to put my glasses on. I'm not going to put a mask on right now because you guys won't be able to hear me well.
Double glass.
So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to load up my buff.
I got my own mask.
You're gonna cover it up with your mouth? Okay, so I'm gonna load up with some polishing compound. In this case, okay, shh. In this case, this is white diamond. And, okay, so if you see now, I did not remove any of those scratches. All I did was polish up around them and made those scratches shiny.
Shiny scratches.
Shiny scratches.
Would you prefer to have normal scratches or shiny scratches?
Right.
Shiny.
Right. So, it doesn't work. You cannot skip steps.
Yeah.
You have to go through the whole process.
Sorry, impatient people.
Yep, unfortunately. So yeah, you do have to go through the various phases on that.
Unless you want shiny scratches.
Sometimes I'm not.
Yeah, but these look, this is terrible looking. Like this doesn't even look professional or anything.
Sometimes
So-
I'm not patient.
Sometimes you're not patient.
Yeah, because right now I just want to go run
Okay.
around everywhere.
See that? I mean, that doesn't even look good.
Well, maybe you want shiny scratches.
No.
Like maybe it has to do with the piece.
Yeah, but
That's like rare.
Okay, but that's if you are not being professional. Like really, I mean, like there's a time and place. So let's say we wanted a texture. Okay, let's go there. Let's say we want a texture. There are some really, really cool tools out there that are going to give you some good, fun texture. Now here's something that you guys should also
One
note.
of those hammers with the spikes on them.
Okay, so here's something you guys should note. Anytime you have one of these quick change hand pieces, so what I needed this one out of this hand piece. Always put something in this hand piece. Never close it without one because you will ruin your collets.
And then you can give me one.
Yeah. Well, and you'll be lucky if you can just change out the collet and not the whole hand piece. And that can be kind of pricey. So let's pretend that our surface is actually good.
Hello, Kimberly.
Welcome.
Glad that you got to catch us live.
Okay, so let's say that we'll go here with this piece of metal. All right. So let's say we want to do kind of a brushed surface. I really, really like these satin, kind of a scrubby.
What do they do?
What do you
clean
think?
It? Is it like
Okay, it
this?
can clean it.
Is it like this
It's
green
gonna be
thing?
touch-
Yes, it is. It's very much like this green thing, which is called a scrubby. Okay,
So
what's
or a
the
Scotch Brite.
difference between doing that or just,
Ooh, good question.
coming in scratch?
Okay, so let's actually look at that.
That one does it
Okay.
better. That one you could like scratch the wrong way.
Okay, so here, Kate, you've blocked the camera. Like they all saw the back of your head. Okay.
You don't want to see that?
No, we don't want to see the back of your head. Okay, so here is what I end up with if I use just the green scrubby. Okay, I did it up, down.
It's a good way to do it if you don't have one of these.
Yes, but this, and that's okay if you don't have a big surface. But if I've got a lot of surface, or maybe I want it to be really
It
fine.
makes it smoother, right?
So you see the difference there? This one is a little finer, and part of that is because of the kind of the grittiness of it. Like this is a little bit finer than our Scotch-Brite. Okay, and not only that, but then I can also do, you know, different surfaces and circles, so I can change direction. And of course I can always do that with the green scrubby too.
It just take longer.
Yeah, so there are options for that. Now, let's say we want to try this little spiky one.
Hammer.
You have to be really, really careful when you're using these.
Why? What does that spiky one do?
Well, I'll show you. You got your glasses on? You two do. Okay.
I've got glasses.
Yeah, always make certain.
Double glasses.
It would not hurt.
Double protection.
Okay.
No way it can get through. If it gets through one, it's okay. I got another pair.
Okay, so this one, I'm only going to run it at about 5,000 RPM. What do you think this is going to do?
It's going to give that little texture.
It's not going to give us a poke, but it is going to give us... Yeah, it's definitely going to give us a little different texture.
Oh,
See that?
oh, I can't see. I can't see.
So,
see.
hang on.
Ooh,
So I'm trying to, so you can see it's a little bit grittier, it's kind of deeper. So it's kind of fun. So let's say that I wanted to do it on a ring, let's say, like so. Okay. Okay, so it's definitely, this is super, super aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's kind of a fun texture as well, right? All right. When we talk about, well, actually, let me ask you this. When would you do this? So in the case of this ring, all this was is copper pipe, okay? And it's not even well finished. Like you can't even wear this because it's what I would call lethal jewelry. Why would I call it lethal jewelry?
It makes your skin green.
No, not even because it makes your skin green. Yes, stop it, you bum. Anyway, lethal jewelry is when it's really sharp, okay?
Dangerous.
So would I jump right to this texture?
Oh.
What would I do first?
Well, you finish sanding it,
Go!
you polish it, and then maybe you do that, and then you polish it again.
Okay, no, you wouldn't polish this one after this step. Why wouldn't I polish it?
Oh, well, you polish it first, and then you do that, and then you're done.
Yeah, so are you saying that I should take this all the way to a completely finished polish before I do this?
If you want to. It's your choice.
You should. You should, and a lot of people don't. And it makes a big difference. Why would it make a big difference? I mean, if all I'm going to do is put a rough texture on this anyway, why should I take it all the way to a polish?
Because if you don't polish it, then it's just going to look bad.
Not necessarily. And sometimes you can fudge it and not do it all the way to there. Okay, but the reason for doing it is because then you have a consistent surface that you start with. Okay, especially for those of you that want a really nice brushed finish, you should take that all the way through a polish. So if you're going to sand it, take it all the way to 600 grit sanding. Maybe more if you wanted to, like you could always go up to a 1200. I usually don't, but take it up to at least a 600. Take it into your Tripoli and then your white diamond or whatever your polishing compound is going to be. Like I use Fabuluster, I use Zam, I use the white platinum and the blue platinum from Fordham. So, or platinum white. What's that?
You said there's white and you said there's blue. What about the red, the black, the green, the purple?
Okay, so, well, and they do. They're different things, and it just depends on what who the maker is as to which one it is. So in this case, the platinum white, I said that it was white diamond. It wasn't. It's platinum white, but that's my finishing one, okay? And the white one in this case is meant for like silver materials like platinum and silver and white gold and things like that. So there's different things, and that's a whole other video that we'll talk about. But anyway, you have a cutting compound and then you also have polishing compounds. And so we'll talk about more of those a little bit later. But what I want to do is I would go from the 600 grit, I would do a Tripoli. Now a Tripoli or Red Rouge, those are going to be a compound that is going to be, they still have a little bit of abrasive to them, okay? Not the Red Rouge. because I think that's a finishing one. But anyway, your Tripoli. Your Tripoli. Now, your Red Rouge is one that you end with because that's the polish, because it's a really fine, smooth one. So you would go from Tripoli to Red Rouge. Okay, but there's several that they have a little bit of a grittiness to them, but it's so much finer than what you would have with your sandpaper or your files. So you would do it after those. Okay, now there's other tools that you can also use, like the little radial discs. Now the radial discs are kind of fine, and they're kind of fun, and you put multiples of them on your mandrel, and then you can go through various grits all the way up to kind of a pumice, but then I still hit it with a polishing compound to give it that nice shine. Now it is very important that you take it all the way to that polish, and then if you want a brushed finish, then pull it back, okay? Felix, I was not thinking of black emery, but you could do black emery too. I have actually never used the black emery one. So there's so many different polishing compounds out there. And as I work with a couple of different companies, I'm hoping to introduce some different ones to you guys, maybe. We'll see. But for now, the ones that I use the most in my studio is I'll use the Tripoli and the Red Rouge. I don't like Red Rouge as much because it's so messy, but Ani from Jewel Tool, she has a compound that she has done, a polishing compound, and it's a final step compound. I really like hers because it just washes off beautifully with some hot soap and water. So I like that one. Another thing that's really important, another thing that's really important is that when you use any kind of compound, they get their own buff. Okay, so if I'm going to use 2 or 3 different compounds, I will have a buff for each one of them. And I haven't done it yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a block that I can then stick all of the mandrels in, and I'm going to label them. This is Tripoli, this is Red Rouge, this is white platinum or platinum white, this is Zam, or this is whatever else. So it can be very confusing. Yeah, and Kimberly, it's coming. There's a whole series of videos that I'm working on right now with Fortem. We're trying to come up with a couple of different accessory kits that you can purchase that's kind of like a master kit, and it'll give you the opportunity to see what you like to use, and then from there you can reorder a product or whatever else, but at least it'll give you kind of a start as to different options that are available out there. But we're going to be creating a whole series on using the micromotors. So you're about to see, you guys will see probably here this week, 2 new videos on the micromotors themselves and how to use those. But the rest of the series is being built out, and we're going to talk about all of the different accessories. So you guys, I just showed you a couple of them. Let me show you what's sitting here on my bench right here at the moment, because I was kind of like, well, maybe we'll talk about this and maybe we won't, and so there's a lot of different accessories right here right now. We'll talk about like the Moore's discs, things like that. So there's quite a few things here, but there's no way I can do it like in just one video. I like to try to keep the videos like 10 minutes or under. Doesn't always happen because I talk too much, but I try to be thorough. Well, no, not even with the videos with you guys, but I try to be very thorough so that you are a little bit better educated as to what to buy, what to purchase, and whatnot. And so one of the things that I'm working on right now that's new to me, so most of you guys know that I'm also one of those DIYer jewelry people, okay? I did not start off with formal training. I have now had some formal training, and I've continued to work through, sometimes I'll watch a video online, sometimes there'll be a workshop that I get to take, things like that. But I've never been professionally trained like as an apprentice or anything like that. That's my text saying we've got to go. Kiari's got a cello lesson like right now. Anyway, one of the things that I've just recently acquired are I think probably about 40 rings, and all that's happened to these rings so far is they've been cast and cut off the sprue, and that was it. And so I myself am learning how to deal with this kind of a thing and to finish these. So that's something that I'll be showing you guys a little bit later. But for now, since the cello teacher's like, are you coming? I better go. Anyway, so I hope that helps you guys. I hope there were some different tips and things like that you guys.
When you say you didn't have professional.
Wendy, thank you. No, I mean, I've had some, and obviously I've done quite a bit. So I know a lot more than one that I realize that I know. But it's not like I've sat, like Alan Revere, I didn't go to a jewelry school. I didn't sit as an apprentice for years and years and years with a goldsmith.
She sat and watched YouTube videos.
I did not watch YouTube videos. Nope, I did not.
Well, she sat down and figured out how to do it.
I did sit down. There's been a lot of trial and error here. And then luckily I've been able to associate myself with some very talented people.
One time she
And
did
so,
paper metal airplane.
a paper metal airplane? All right, we gotta go. Okay, so we will see you guys tomorrow at 1:45. We'll pick up on this pendant again. If I can get this prepped and ready to go, I will probably show the girls how to solder and set the tube setting.
Someone said they want to
So-
do the cello.
You want to hear the cello? Maybe we'll have you guys do the cello. She's still just barely learning. She got it for Christmas. Hi. So we better go. All right, you guys. We'll talk to you guys
Bye,
soon.
bye, bye, bye,
Have a
bye,
good
bye.
one. Bye.
And I did my homework. Bye. I did my homework during the video and it's still going.
That's okay. Oh no, it is still going.